I have 3 questions. I don't know if we'll get through all of them today, but if someone present has a burning question, then that always takes precedence. If anyone has an urgent need to hear some topic discussed, then happy to go with that. Okay. All right. And here's Gangalila, Chinden, Dana, Krishna Keshava. Welcome, everyone. All right, then. So this is one question which came in yesterday from Ananda Krishna's cousin, actually, Axel, in Palmdale, California. And he's asking about Bhagavad Gita. Is it important to remember words such as yagya or kshatriya to get the most out of the Gita? I plan on reading it, but what is the best way to study it and understand Krishna? And what are the ways to serve the Lord? My schedule is very tight, and I wanted to ask what I can do to satisfy the Lord in the time that I have. Very nice, very sincere questions. So the first question is, how important is to, I'm not entirely sure what the essence of this question is, but it seems like he's saying, do I need to know the Sanskrit? Would you say? That's more or less what he's saying. Is it important to remember these words? No, one thing to remember as we're going through these holy texts is that it's not meant to be an academic exercise. We are trying to connect with the particular divine current, a divine flow. And it is an eternal flow. We want to tap into that, be the recipients of divine grace. That we want the words of Gita to wash over us, you could say. And of course, we're engaging our brain on some level, but the brain's not at the forefront. At the forefront is the offering of the heart, the offering of the self, and trying to become receptacles, trying to become receivers of what Bhagavad Gita wants to give us. Bhagavad Gita is not just a book that's gathering dust on our bookshelf, but Bhagavad Gita is a divine current of living truth. And that's what we want to connect with when we are approaching Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, and these things like knowing he's mentioned these words like kshatriya or yagya, I can understand these things may be a little overwhelming, right? Very foreign sounding words. You don't need to go out of your way to try to learn them. It's something that you'll pick up, as time goes by. You will, you're hearing again and again, and it will just become a part of your day-to-day, vocabulary. So these things you will absorb naturally. And if one thing I was reflecting on recently, and why I feel our Gurudev didn't put so much emphasis on certain points of Vaishnava practice, is because if we learn certain things without learning more important things first, then we get our priorities mixed up. So like for example, and this also touches on a question that Marie sent in as well. Like we were discussing recently, Ekadashi, how we follow Ekadashi, and we saw that our Gurudev, he didn't expect the Western devotees to follow in such a strict way. And there's this one occasion which many of you have heard of. Our Gurudev's in Russia, and the cook comes in and asks Gurudev, can we take tomatoes on Ekadashi? And our Gurudev says, no, you can't take tomatoes on Ekadashi. And the cook goes out the room. Then our Gurudev turns to everyone and said, if he had cooked me something with tomatoes, I would have eaten it, no problem. But because he came and asked me, what's the rule? Then I'm telling him. So, but he didn't expect. And I feel that one reason he didn't emphasize that so much is because we have this tendency with our limited. Sham, please be quiet. We have a 6-year-old in the house. With our limited, finite brains, we have this tendency to reduce everything, right? So what can happen with us is that Ekadashi will become all about what you're not supposed to eat, right? Oh no, we're not supposed to eat tomatoes in Ekadashi. We're not supposed to eat bread, and it's like that's not what Ekadashi is about. It's not about what you're not supposed to do. No, it's about a particular mood that you're trying to cultivate. That's what it's about. But what you are doing. So, and we see this kind of stuff go on. We'll hear our beloved God brothers and God sisters getting into squabbles about whether you can have buckwheat on Ekadashi and whether you can have quinoa on Ekadashi. And it's like, let's use that time for something more meaningful. So I feel that that's one reason our Gurudev didn't emphasize these things so much, because it's like our brains can only hold so much, like the first thing is that we understand the mood. The first thing is that we understand the main principle and the heart behind the Ekadashi, right? And then gradually these other things will come behind that, right? It's just like, we have a particular culture that we follow, right? And that culture, by culture, I mean, for example, like cleanliness, we follow particular standards of cleanliness, waking up at a certain time, trying to go to bed at a certain time, and so on. And Marie was mentioning something about, someone wrote something about colors that you're supposed to wear and not supposed to wear, and all these things, these are all things that may follow behind, right? Certain things which are auspicious and which are inauspicious, but they're all meant to follow behind what is the main principle. And the main principle is the spirit of devotion. But if it's like for example, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but several persons who were newly initiated came to me very confused, because as soon as they were initiated, someone gave them this book called Service Life, which is full of all the rules, what you're supposed to do and what you're not. And these are like brandly new initiated. They're just so confused, and their whole idea of what Krishna consciousness is got very mixed up. So this is the thing. We don't, in the beginning especially, we don't quite have the right for the proper balance perspective. Right? What's the overall narrative? Right, that we haven't quite worked that out. There are all these parts and pieces flying around, like what you eat, how you dress, and what time you wake up, chanting, and it's all a little bit kind of out of proportion, and this and here and there, and but we need to. It's like Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's discussing this in one place, and he uses I believe he's explaining the word vigyan. Right, there's gyan, knowledge, and vigyan, like more developed knowledge, refined knowledge. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was giving the analogy, right, that, there are so many parts in our body, but there's also some hierarchy, right? And everything has some particular purpose, the eyes, the brain, the nose, there's some particular function and some order of importance, right? Like the brains, like most crucial part, brain, the heart, So there's some. What happened? It says, am I still here? Okay. According to this computer, I'm not here. Zoom is telling me I've been signed out because I'm signed. Okay, I'm having a very existential moment here. But you're all saying I'm here, so I'm here. I'm gonna believe. My father, who I visited just now, he has this one sign on his land. It says, "This notice is," and I asked him about it, and he said, "It's an existential sign." So Zoom is telling me I am not, but you're all telling me I am, so I'm going to believe it. So, especially for babies, for newcomers, it's important that we learn the important things first. and like sometimes you see newcomers enter the temple and everybody's slamming with all the rules. Don't, like, often our devotees will get upset if people face the wrong way in the temple, or their feet are pointing in the wrong way, and people are telling them, don't do this, don't do that, and they get very confused, So it's like, first connect with the heart, connect with the spirit, connect with the essence of what this is, and then everything else will follow behind that naturally. So going back specifically to our question at hand here, so these words, yagya, kshatriya, you'll naturally, absorb those. And, what I will say is that it is valuable to recite the verses of Bhagavad Gita, even if you don't understand, because there's a particular vibration there. It's not about the Sanskrit or the Bengali. That's not the point. We're not worshipers of language, right? But we are worshipers of divine currents and divine heart revelation. So because the words of Lord Krishna happen to come out in the Sanskrit language, and of course it is a perfect language, it is a matter of form and substance coming together, you could say. But so because that Krishna's words are coming out in Sanskrit, then we are worshiping that and we are learning that and so on. So but the point I wanted to make is that, if we are simply reciting or hearing the verses, even without understanding or trying to memorize them, we're still going to get some benefit from that, because we're connecting with that original vibration, what came from Krishna. If he spoke in English, then we would connect with that. Like, we have many books that came from our gurus originally in English. We have some books in our temple in that were translated from English into Bengali. Our, like, Shri Guru Deva Tahara Karuna, Shri Guru and his grace, right? That was originally spoken in English. And we're worshiping that divine revelation that came out in the English language. And then that was translated into Bengali. So then I would say the English is more potent there, because that's originally what came from the heart of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So our Gurudev made this point, that even if you don't understand these verses, but you're chanting them with faith, then you will get some benefit. So both things here. We want to read the English and try to get some understanding of the English, but it's also beneficial for us to connect with the original verses as they're coming in Bhagavad Gita. And then he's saying, what is the best way to understand what is the best way to study Bhagavad Gita and understand Krishna? Well, everybody knows the answer to this here. What do you say, Nanda Krishna? What?
You can.
What's the best way to study and study Bhagavad Gita?
Best way?
The best way. What do you say, Kanfiji?
Did a senior devotee or a guru or a person?
Yes, yeah. Kanfiji is saying with the teacher.
Yeah.
With a guide. This is as with everything. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's one line which is often quoted by our guru, spoken by Mahaprabhu. Jaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavera Stane. Go and study Srimad Bhagavatam from a Vaishnava. This is how we learn. Because otherwise, we can make so much interpretation, right? We can come to so many different conclusions, and especially when it comes to Bhagavad Gita, there are hundreds, thousands by now, I would think, editions of Bhagavad Gita. There's even a fashion to make your own commentary on Bhagavad Gita. It's like a thing that people do. Oh yes, I've written my commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Have you written yours? There's a culture like that I've come across. So there are so many different interpretations out there. So we need to to connect with, what is the specific conception of our gurus. That is what we want to follow. So we, as with everything in life, we need a guide. We need to study Bhagavad Gita, the guide. And, in particular, we have, we have what is, it's very accessible and valued to us and, trusted to us, and our line of gurus is the Bhagavad Gita of our grandfather guru, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. And then also the Gita of Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita as it is, that is also very helpful. And for new persons in particular, Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada's edition is more helpful, because Srila Sridhar Maharaj in his edition, it's assuming, his edition is assuming that you already have some prior understanding, and there's only purports in some very special places in Bhagavad Gita. But Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada's edition, he's giving more of a beginner's introduction, explaining basic points. So, both of those will be maybe helpful to you. Then, also you can follow classes of Bhagavad Gita, and amongst the living Vaishnavas, there are so many classes previously done, recorded online, going on still. We can share links with you. But the main point is that we want to study under some guidance, and we can ask questions if we have questions. That is the main thing. Okay, then the next question that our friend Axel had here was, what are the ways to serve the Lord? I don't have so much time. What's the best way I can satisfy the Lord in the time that I have? Well, in general, we can say we are trying to make our lives an offering, and this is something that is very specific to Bhakti. You could say that the emphasis is on our consciousness, not necessarily on what we are actually doing, but what is the consciousness behind. There's so much emphasis put on that. And even we are told that if we perform some particular service for the Lord or some worship, if we didn't offer that before we did it, then it doesn't count as purely in the line of devotion. That is mixed with karma. That we are doing something and then offering it. But in the cultivation of bhakti devotion, the intention is so crucial. So before from the very beginning, we have to be offering that activity. If we're cooking something for the Lord, we're consciously going, collecting the ingredients for the Lord's pleasure, cooking for the Lord's pleasure, then offering for the Lord's pleasure. And that is in the line of pure devotion, exclusive devotion. So the main point I'm making here is that that spirit of consciously offering, and whatever it may be, when we wake up in the morning, we can pray, before I get out of bed, may this day be an offering. May I connect with you, my Lord. There's a beautiful line of Srila Sridhar Maharaj in Loving Search for the Lost Servant that I remember time to time. Please accept me and connect me. Wherever I am, whatever, I'm moving through, accept me and connect me, my Lord. From whatever, he'll accept us from whatever point, he will accept us. So from whatever point we're at, my Lord, please accept me. Please connect me to your lotus feet. We can try to move with that spirit. When we're eating our lunch, we can remember Krishna. Oh, Krishna, I'm offering this sandwich to you. We have to support our family members. Oh, I'm thinking that my family, they are Krishna's servants, and I'm helping them. I'm taking care of them. And these, these are just little things in our daily lives, right? But they can dramatically transform our experience of reality. And we can also try to leave ourselves open. No, Lord, please show me the way forward. This is also Krishna's promise in Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Those persons who are always absorbed in thought of me, who are exclusively devoted to me, I will show them the way by which they can approach me. I will show them the way. And whenever we have the opportunity, the best thing, the number one thing is that we get association with the devotees, with those who are already following the line of devotion to Krishna. And ideally, those who are a little bit ahead of us, that is the best. To have higher association, higher company on the path. That is the greatest wealth that we could possibly have. So to try to seek that out, when and if possible, in person, online, and in whatever, which way is possible. Association is everything, actually. Association is everything. And if we're not able to have physical association, then we have the books. Our Gurudev mentioned that many times, then the books, that is also a type of association. That we are trying to link our consciousness with that higher plane of consciousness. We're trying to align ourselves with the higher consciousness, higher reality. We were out just now, and Nanda Krishna, he came across this t-shirt, an artificial reality. So we want to give up with this concocted artificial reality that we're identifying with. But what is the real reality? In Srimad Bhagavatam, this phrase is there, Vastava Vastu, means the real reality, the true reality. That's what we want to connect. So that is what, and so that we need that higher association, in the form of persons, in the form of the message being given in our books. We want to try to. And if we, our Gurudev recommended, do something when first thing in the morning. He said that will set the tone of your whole day. As soon as you wake up, make that the first thing you do. Remember the Lord. Of course, if you're in a temple, then you're a little spoiled. It's very easy, whether you like it or not, you're going to be reminded. Kanapriya is going to do the arati in the morning, and you cannot forget. So then you hear those bells ringing. Then you're very fortunate if you can be surrounded by devotees. But if not, then you have to make that little bit of extra effort. At least 15 minutes, to hear something, read something, chant something, something. And that will set the tone of your whole day. That will change your whole day. So that is a very valuable thing. Anyone else want to add any? Chinmoy Prabhu, you want to add anything to that?
I think what you're mentioning about the Sridhar Maharaj, it was based on like the sincerity of the searcher. If please accept me, Lord. I'm here, please accept me. I think it's so based on the sincerity of the searcher, the opportunity will come.
Jai. Yeah, we want to remember that it is a living thing. And the Lord will hear our prayer and he will show us the way forward. Our Gurudev used to say that, we are not dealing with dead matter, but it is a living matter. So if we have that sincerity and that true need in the heart, then the way forward will be revealed to us. And that connection will be revealed to us. Okay. Well, a lot of beautiful people have joined us. Devi Shakti Didi's been with us, but she just popped out. Seva Rupa in South Africa. Andavad Nanda Srupani is with us. Krishna Jani, Bhakta Jim, Krishna Keshava Bhanavi in Italy is with us. And we have a new friend, Ram, and also Julian have also joined us. So welcome. Welcome. beautiful quote from Marie in the chat here. Okay, well, let's see. We also had Marie also asked this question. It was a book written. I mean, maybe I answered this already. I don't know. The question was a book that somebody wrote, a devotee. I don't know if it was in our community or not.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's got the SCS Mott logo on the front. I think it's called like Good Questions, Perfect Answers.
Wait,
Yeah.
don't say, we don't want to criticize anyone. No names, don't mention any names, please.
Okay, no names. Yeah, no, well, you addressed the fact that that the question's kind of superficial, which I think I said this is kind of superficial, but I was wondering how much is cultural, how much has theological backing.
Right. Well, yeah, and you said one particular thing that stood out was that women and girls should not give the full dandavat, obeisances on the ground, and committed a fair amount of space to discussing auspicious and inauspicious colors to wear to the temple. Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of addressed that, and yeah, it just sounds to me like it's all a bit disjointed and out of perspective, you know. And yes, they are. These are mostly cultural things. They're things which are supporting the higher thing, which is not perhaps such an articulate way of saying. They're things. They're supporting the higher things. But you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a framework, right? It's a framework. It's like the Varnashrama system in India, right? The social religious system of India. Our Gurudev, he used these terms, Daiva Varnashram and Asura Varnashram, right? The God-centered Varnashrama system and demonic Varnashram, because it can't just be all based upon external physical things and formalities and practices, rituals and culture. Then and with the goal of personal gain as well, then that becomes something, you know, very mundane. So these things are also these external things, they're supposed to be supporting the spirit. It's like the other day I was remembering one expression of our Gurudev, you know, what's the value of the nose without the breath? What is the value of the nose without the breath? You know, and he said that our life breath, our breath is the life force of devotion to Krishna. That's the real thing. But the nose also has some place, you know, it's adding something. But you could manage without your nose, right? You could manage perfectly well without your nose, but you couldn't manage without that breath, right? So these things are like that. They are trappings, right? Which are giving some support, you know, like cleanliness, let's say. You know, cleanliness is within sattva gun, right? Within the jurisdiction of sattva gun, the mode of goodness. Okay, we have a question here. I'll come back to later. So sattva gun, the energy of goodness, we're trying to live lives in sattva gun, but that's not the be all and end all. That's still within the saguna realm, right? That's still within the realm of that's still within the jurisdiction of mundanity. You know, props, Jayadev is saying, nice. Props, they're props, yeah. So to be clean, that is something that's supporting, but that's not what it is itself. And that following that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it. So I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, the things that you told me in the book, it sounds a bit silly to me, to be honest.
Well, that tells me that, you know, I'm not going to accidentally like completely throw somebody off track if I wear the wrong color. Like, it's nice to know that. Because I want to meet y'all someday.
Yeah, you know, don't worry. And you're mentioning this thing about women not doing Dandavat. That's, you know, that's because I mean, it's not something worth having a paragraph about in a beginner's guide. You know? It might be something that you mention once, you know, in your lifetime to someone, you know, in half a sentence. You know, that's just a question of you know, there's some chastity. You know, the female form is, you know, can be very agitating, and so for the peace of mind, you know, of men, you know, like that, you know, there are different things like that that we follow, but they don't need to be, you know, doesn't need to be presented in this disproportionate way, you know, over exaggerated way, you know. So okay, well, I think those are more or less regarding colors. I don't know, are we gonna should I get into this now that we've brought it up? Would I be undermining everything I just said?
Well, Didi, maybe you could speak a little bit, because Shooter Maharaj, when questions similar to this came about, he'd always differentiate between the absolute consideration and the relative consideration. And both have value, but ultimately we're looking for the absolute consideration.
Very nice, very nicely put. Yes, those terms are so helpful for us. Thank you so much. That really helps to frame this whole discussion, right? The relative and the absolute. You know? So yes, we want the relative to support our march towards the absolute. But, you know, ultimately, you know, that the absolute, that is what we are concerned with, right? And if we need to, we can leave aside the relative, but we can never leave aside the absolute. That is the central thing. Yeah, and regarding colors, I mean, a few things I heard our Gurudev mention, like I never ever heard him talk. I mean, I was in India for 5 years living with our Gurudev, and I never ever heard him talk about it once, you know. But you know, there are a few, like, what, one time on this day to one person he said this, and another time on this day in this country, like that, you know. Was I know there was someone who was going to take initiation. They were wearing a black sari, and our Gurudev, he didn't like that. He told them to change. So we know he considered that to be inauspicious to wear black clothes. And another thing that I've heard he mentioned to a few ladies is that the dark blue saris, he said that is the color of Radharani. And, you know, these are subtle, nuanced things, you know, that the ladies shouldn't wear this particular dark blue in their sari because that is the color of Radharani. You know, these are like very, you know, this is kind of like what the fine connoisseur will mean something to them. You know, someone on a very subtle platform like our Gurudev. You know, and he's mentioning some, you know, some fine thing. If someone doesn't follow that, he's not going to discredit you because of that. So those are the only things that I heard, you know, mentioned, you know, like fourth hand that our Gurudev said. So anyway, don't need to worry too much. I did have a third question come in. It was from our friend here, Ananda Krishna, about Ekadashi, because we had Ekadashi last week, and we still have time. We've got about 20 minutes. So what is the significance of Ekadashi? You know? And there are different levels of understanding. You know, there's the general conception we hear that, you know, on Ekadashi, or like I like what Janardamar said something funny, like about the fear of Papa Purush, you know, putting the fear of Papa Purush. Pap means sin in Sanskrit, and so it's said that sin, and there's some Puranic history, you know, some history in the scriptures, in the Puranas, and you know, we don't need to get into all of that, but it said that sin was particularly given grains as a resting place on the day of Ekadashi. So this is like a very generic idea about Ekadashi, and so we avoid grains on that day to avoid this extra, you know, sinful energy that is said to be in grains on that particular day. Ekadashi means 11th day, and it's referring to the cycle of the moon, the phases of the moon, right? There are 14 phases in the waxing moon and the waning moon. As the moon is approaching the full moon and the new moon, there are 14 phases either side. So Ekadashi means the 11th day in that phase. So there are approximately two every month, every 14-day period. There's one in the waxing, in the approach of the waxing moon, and then one in the waning moon. So this is a very generic idea. You don't take grains because they have sin. That's one level of understanding. Then another idea on Ekadashi is that on this day, because the moon has power, the moon influences water, right? And so because our bodies are something like 80% water, then the moon has some stimulating effect on our body, you know, just like you see with the tides, the ocean, right? The moon has some influence. And it's known, you know, like we have one god sister, she's a doctor in London, and she said you're like Luna, right? Lunatic, right? It's known somehow, like the moon has this effect of creating madness in people. And my friend said always on the full moon, like the phones are running nonstop, like emergency, coming to hospital, and like, so the moon has this power. And so the idea is, right, on the 11th day, as the moon is coming to the end of this cycle, right? It's the 11th day, the 14th day is the completion point. And so when the influence of the moon is starting to become stronger, then you're checking that influence by restraining your senses, right? So on Ekadashi, we are eating more simply. We are avoiding foods that are very nourishing to the body, you know, like, you know, high protein foods or very rich in nutrition, like that, you know, that have a strengthening, very nourishing effect on the body. We are avoiding those foods, or also foods which are very enjoyable, you know, very, very stimulating to the senses, to the taste experience. You know, and our Gurudev, you know, like that example many of you have heard, people debate about, and this goes back to how we started, you know, can you take chocolate? It's actually a fruit. It's not really a seed. So we can take it, we can't take it. And they asked our Gurudev, and he said, that's not the point. That's not the real question. That's beside the point. But Ekadashi goes against the spirit. Sorry, chocolate goes against the spirit of Ekadashi. This is the main principle, right? Let us follow the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, right? So, so this is another idea of Ekadashi, you know, that we are trying to minimize, you know, this, you know, the urges of our physical existence, you know, trying to check that by, you know, as the moon is increasing its power, you know, then we're simplifying. So that is another factor which we've heard mentioned by our gurus. But we must always remember that we are in the line of devotion. So this is the main point, It is like also going back to our discussion on Sattva Gun. We could say all this about, why we are vegetarian, right? We could have a whole discussion about, oh, well, we are ahimsa, we're not harming animals and so on. And these, for the vegetarian foods, are in the mode of goodness. And so they're more supportive of spiritual practice. You could have a whole elaborate discussion about that. But ultimately, that's actually all besides the point. We are always interested. What's the devotional connection here? Of course, okay, there's some purpose there. Those things all have a point. But what's the real essence? There must always be a devotional foundation. So why are we vegetarian? Because Krishna likes to eat those kinds of foods, and we're only eating Krishna's prasadam. That's the real point. We're giving Krishna what he likes, and then we're taking his grace, his prasad, right? So with the Kadashi also, we're told on that day, Krishna is more in need of energy, right? Because, and this is another point here, Krishna's whole Leela is a prakrita, right? A prakrita means human-like, appearing human, supramundane, appearing mundane, but actually beyond the mundane. So in the same way that we may feel under the influence of the moon, our enjoying tendency increases, so Krishna also in his divine Leela, there's a divine expression of that. He's more hungry. He's in more need of energy, of enjoyment on that day. And our duty is to supply that to him. So then why do we minimize our own enjoyment? Because we're losing time with that. Like our Gurudev mentioned in regards to the month of Kartik, right? When we also try to simplify our eating and so on. Our Gurudev said, we don't want to spend so much time for ourselves. So we just throw everything in the pot and cook it. During the month of Kartik, they make this dalme where they boil the dal. Normally we'll have rice, dal, sabji, right? Separately, rice, dal, vegetables. But in Kartik, they'll make this simple dalme where they just mix everything together, the dal and the veggies, and serve it as one dish. And so our Gurudev said, the idea is that we don't want to spend so much time for ourselves. So we're just throwing everything in the pot, like that. It is a very simple thing. So the idea in Ekadashi is we want to give more energy to Krishna. And to be able to give more energy to Krishna, then we need to spend less time on ourselves. Our Gurudev explains the meaning of the word upabas. Upabas is the Sanskrit word for fasting. And so he said upa from the word samipe, which means to be close to. And vas, to reside. And so upavas, by minimizing my own enjoyment, by embracing the spirit of sacrifice, then I will be closer to you, my Lord. I will be closer to you. So this is the idea. We're trying to give more to Krishna, and thereby, naturally, we're taking less for us. And our eagerness to give more. Krishna is more hungry on this day. Krishna is in more need on this day. Then we have to run to supply that. We want to give more for our spiritual culture. But then, there are some fine points that we have to consider. How exactly do we observe that? Then things can get a little tricky because what can often happen is our devotees, they get, we're always like on this pendulum. It's either this or that. So we're either in the mode of renunciation or we're in the mode of exploitation. It's really hard for us to walk that middle path of, it's like we always want to be in one extreme. So often what we'll see is there can be this mood of of renunciation on Ekadashi. All right, we've got some phone going off. Having some adventures with children in the house here. Like actually in the scriptures, the standard, practice on Ekadashi is a full fast, the full day. And those who are strictly following won't take any water also. But Saraswati Thakur, and then one thing is that many people will follow that, but in the mood of gaining some credits for themselves, right? And the whole purpose of devotion is forgotten about. Although, the scriptures, they're also accommodating that and even encouraging that mood. It's a step on the ladder, just follow Ekadashi for whatever reason, just follow Ekadashi. That's also good, but that's down here and we want to move up, right? The next level. So competing, Gangalila is saying, yeah, people may compete, how much they could fast, or how much austerity they could do. Yes, that goes on too. But Saraswati Thakur made this point, why we're following Ekadashi not for ourselves, so we can get some special gain, but it's for Krishna's satisfaction. But if we're doing an extreme fast, then more likely than not, we're going to be incapacitated for service, and we'll end up doing less, right? Like there's one Ekadashi in particular, Nirjal, right? When you don't take any water. And actually our Gurudev, he never really expected us to follow that. I've never followed it. And anyone who I don't want to say anything. I shouldn't say that, but let's say none of the devotees who I, hold up here, I saw them following either. It wasn't something that our Gurudev ever told us to do. But of course, if somebody wants to do that, then that is a nice thing. It's not a bad thing. But the point is, can you still give more seva? And so many times I've seen devotees who are following that, and then they're laying in their bed in their room, and they can't do anything, So yukta vairagya, that's always our principle. Take what you need, not less, not more. So our principle is service. We want to give to Krishna. That is our principle always. So on Ekadashi, it's kind of like you have to find this, and it will be unique for everyone, right? You have to find that particular point of adjustment where you're making some sacrifice, right? You're reducing your personal consumption, enjoyment, but not at the point where you're becoming incapacitated. At the point where there's some genuine sacrifice taking place, you're giving energy to Krishna, you're feeling that burn, so to speak, but not to the point where you're burned out, you can't do anything. There's a particular point, like you're just about to reach your max. And that's the point we want to reach. So, what else? Does that answer your question, Ananta? And there's more we could say, but our, our main principle is seva. And there's this story that we've heard from our gurus about Saraswati Thakur. And then, and then another right. So this was the adjustment, right, that Saraswati Thakur made, that you fast until noon, half day fast. And then we take, right, because the rule, as I said, was full day fast, but he adjusted that because he pointed out our real principle is service, not fasting. We're not about fasting. We're not about feasting. We're about seva. No, that's what we're about. So it can be hard for us to find that particular point, right? Because our default is one of the other. So then he instituted this practice of a half-day fast. And then we take anukalpa, means like fasting. We take simple foods. And there was one occasion, it was on a Janmashtami, the appearance day of Lord Krishna, when you're also meant to do a fast until midnight. Actually, it's the most difficult day to fast, a full fast until midnight. More difficult than Ekadashi. But Saraswati Thakur was sending someone to Vrindavan for some service. And he told and normally you won't eat anything. And then at midnight, we'll take anukalpa, like non-grain prasad. But Saraswati Thakur was sending this person for some service in Vrindavan, and he told the cook to prepare rice for that person. And, first of all, like to not be fasting, to be eating. And then not only that, but you're eating grains, that was shocking for them. And the cook, he was very surprised to hear that. And he said to Saraswati Thakur, oh, but it's Janmashtami. And Saraswati Thakur said, yes, I know. He was perfectly aware. But his idea was he's taking this long journey. He has some heavy service to do. He needs to keep his body fit. So then he doesn't need to follow that. We heard Srila Sridhar Maharaj said Saraswati Thakur like this expression, an army marches on its stomach. So full prasad and full seva, right? That's their conception. So whatever is going to facilitate your service, then we take that, whatever that may be. So, anyone else want to add anything? Devi Shakti Didi is with us, such an honor. Devi Shakti Didi, anything? We'd love to hear from you. She's turned her camera off now. I also know she doesn't like being put on the spot. She's complained to me about other persons and other Zooms putting her on the spot, so I shouldn't do that. We can't help it. We just love you so much, Vishakha. You're muted. Okay, now you're.
Vishakha Didi. So nice to hear you speaking, and so nice to hear Chinmoy always putting in such wonderful comments and everything. But what I was just thinking about is how when I was living in the ashram in the earlier days, that we used to go out on collection, and they used to feed us like anything to make sure that we had enough prasadam to eat before we went out all day, So that was another thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh. And I was just thinking about that. That just came into my mind. They used to feed us up to the brim, and make sure we had enough. And we got into a habit of like always eating good meals in the morning. They would give us full prasadam every morning. Then we'd go out all day till the evening. And, we'd have some lunches at times, and just to make sure we had enough prasadam, to give us strength so that we could do our service. So, and also I was thinking about when you were talking about another topic about your incentive, about when you do something, like the first thing in the morning when you get up. I can't even see myself. The first thing in the morning when you get up, it should be an offering of whatever you do. So I think it's kind of like habituated with a lot of us that, that we're doing everything that we can to always remember Krishna, to never forget Krishna. As soon as we wake up, we rinse our mouths and then we start chanting. I mean, I don't live in the ashram anymore, so it's a different type of lifestyle for me that I'm just still getting used to. And so it's the incentive behind our motivation in the beginning of the day that whatever we do, we're trying to do for Krishna. We're trying to always remember Krishna and live our lives for Krishna, for his service, for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, and that's what I've been trying to do in my life. I'm not saying that I'm on some spontaneous platform or anything like that, but I think we all have that in our hearts that, we want to live our days and do whatever we can. Like, I just had to get a vehicle, because my car is starting to fall apart. And that car was Gurudev's car. He said that is my car, not to sell, but that was like so many years ago. And now I have to get rid of the car. Now I got a new car, and so I'm trying to, I'm feeling like it's a push from the Lord because I'm so inspired by Lavanya, and she's still going around. I watch a lot of the classes and in London and in Italy, and I'm just inspired by the devotees, how intensely absorbed they are in their service, And so I'm just trying to hold on to whatever I can and try to utilize everything. So this new car that I got, I'm so enlivened, and like, springtime is getting ready to come and summertime is coming, and I want to try to utilize all my energy in the service of Guru and Gauranga. So it's our incentive. Why we do things? What are we doing it for? Why, how can we live by ourselves, for ourselves? We get habituated to live for Krishna. So it's a good habit that we've gotten ourselves into, and always seeing the devotees and hearing from the devotees. I'm not always catching the classes, but I'm catching them after sometimes they're live, like your beautiful class in Italy on the Brahma Samhita was amazing. It was so beautiful, so many of them. And so I try not to miss them, but then I do, but then I watch later. So it's very enlivening. So anyway, I kind of jumped all over the place, but I think you guys get the gist of it all, that, we should always remember Krishna, never forget him, and, just try to live our lives for that. I see Ramananda Prabhu is here and he lives like that.
Danvas Vishakha, Danvas Devi Shakti. Trying to do that.
We're all trying to live our lives for the Lord, and we're not pure. I'm not a pure devotee. I'm nowhere near you guys, I'm just trying to hold on to what I have and try to remember Krishna and do everything for his pleasure, So anyway, like staying healthy, exercising, we got to do everything for him within the back of our hearts, within the back of our mind, like he's there, whatever we're doing, But, we get pulled down by the modes of nature all the time. And so that's why it's good for the association of devotees. We have each other. And, when we get older, get a little lazier, I must say. That's an excuse to be lazy. Oh, I'm older. But, we just have to hold on and just keep trying. So, that's what I can give today. I don't know. I just kind of ramble on, but I think you guys kind of get the gist of it all, what I'm trying to say and where my heart's at. So, always remember Gurudev, never forget him, always remember Krishna. He's not a picture. He's something beyond that. Read the books and, listen to the books, hear the devotees, and just try to go on in our lives in a Krishna conscious way. So please forgive me for my craziness. And it's so nice to be here with all of you. And my dandavats to everyone. Advaita Acharya's Parents' Day is coming up soon. So that was really nice. Keshavananda Prabhu gave a really beautiful class this morning in London. What it wasn't this morning. I think it was the other morning, but I watched it this morning. So yeah, we can always keep that in mind about Gaur Pranim coming up. So my dandavats, Vishakha.
Thank you so much, Devi Shakti. You're one of the heroes in our mission, really.
You're one of the heroes in our mission. You're doing so many.
I liked what you said, that we've got ourselves into the good habit of trying to live for Krishna.
And trying to what?
You said we've got ourselves into the good habit of trying to live for Krishna.
Yeah.
Like
You know,
that.
so it becomes a little bit spontaneous, but still, we're not pure. We make mistakes. We fall down, we get up, we have, even when we're doing something that we think is non-devotional, it's, it can be used in his service to help us in our service. So if we're always remembering him, there's nothing to fear. Krishna, that's what Shuddha Shrava Prabhu used to always tell us. He's not a condemning Lord. He's a loving Lord. He loves us. He loves us more than we could even imagine, and he's not gonna, what is it called? Fire and brimstone, we're not gonna like, I screwed up. So, I'm gonna get punished for this. It's not like that, Krishna is kind to us, and we're the ones that are always, heavy on ourselves. So, just keeping the beautiful association, Vishakha, and all the other wonderful devotees, and keep hearing the classes from everybody all over the world. And and also I wanted to say about Paramananda, Bhakti Yoga for All. It's amazing, beautiful class he gave last Wednesday on Revealed Truth. It was just amazing. So he's an extraordinary devotee, Paramananda Prabhu, and we can catch some of his classes. It's also very wonderful.
Jai Devi Dasi Didi, so wonderful to hear from you.
My
We're just
family here. This is my family. This is my real family. And it's so beautiful to be in touch with all of you devotees, and all of us. We're trying so hard. Life is short, We're all getting older really quick. I can't believe, it's like, yikes, and, devotees are, running to the other side very quickly, so we have to really take the association seriously. At least try to, anyway. We can just keep going.
I think that's a good note to end on, Dee. We're just running out of time.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to take. Please forgive me.
No. We're very blessed to hear from you. And it's been a beautiful meeting. Thank you all so much for your association, especially Chinmay Prabhu always hosting so kindly and contributing also. We did have a question from our new friend Julian here about patience. Well, if you tune in next Tuesday, we can address it then. And also Chinmay Prabhu just wanted to touch base. I think next week will be the last week I'll be able to join for a few weeks, because then a group of us are going to India. And you're also going to moving to Italy. Will you still be available, you think, to continue with the hosting?
Yes, it's still a good time for me.
Okay.
And yes, let's talk more about your trip so we can kind of organize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll sign out for today. Have a beautiful week ahead. Look forward to next time. And Divi Shakti, you've got lots of comments from your fans in the chat.
Dandos Vishakha Didi. Dandos everywhere.
Jai.
Yeah.
Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki.
Yeah.
Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai. Divi Shakti. Jai. Chinmay Prabhu. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. And Scarlett also joined in. Great to see you, Scarlett. Haribol.